the Chief Justice of India to kindly address the August gathering.
A very good evening to everyone here this evening. Honorable Chief Justice of India designate, my very dear brother and friend Justice Sanjeev Khanna, distinguished sister and brother judges of the Supreme Court, Mr. R. Venkatramani, the Learned Attorney General for India, Mr. Tushar Mehta, the Solicitor General, Mr. Kapil Sibal, the President of the Supreme Court Bar Association, Ms. Rachna Srivastav, Vice President of SCBA, Vikrant Yadav, the Secretary, and all the office bearers of SCBA, and of course, Skora, Vipin Nair, Amit Sharma, Nikhil Jain, and all the other members, the members of the registry, all the senior and junior lawyers who've come in such large numbers that you have truly left me humbled, my own family. But last not the least, all the former judges, both of the Supreme Court, I can see Indiradi in the audience, of the Allahabad High Court who have come here. My dear friend Pradeep Baghel is here in the audience. Thank you so much for such a great honor. What more can I expect from life? I'll begin with a little story about flowers because I was thinking that the second bouquet was for Brother Sanjeev, and when the second bouquet came for me, and then there were two bouquets for Brother Sanjeev as well. When I became Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, on an average, at every bar functions, there would be about 25 to 30 marigold garlands which were placed on your collar. And of course, when I went home, Kalpana would say that, these marigold flowers tend to damage your shirt, and then it's very difficult to get the color off. So I began by telling the president of the Bar Association, I said, ये आप फूल देने का कष्ट ना करें, कितना पैसा खर्च करते हैं आप? So he said, नहीं जी, ऐसा नहीं है, अब इतना प्यार है, सभी का प्यार है. And I said, but कष्ट आप ना लें इतने फूल देने का. At which point of time he told me the eternal truth. And he said, ये फूल आपके लिए नहीं देते हैं चीफ साहब, ये हमारे लिए देते हैं. थोड़ा सा फोटो वोटो भी हो जाता है आपके साथ. बट सच में आज जो फूल मिले हैं मुझे, ये मैं दिल से मुझे पता चला कि ये फूल मेरे लिए थे. क्योंकि दिल की बातें जो छुपाई नहीं जा सकती. Well, it's a moment today of Thanksgiving. It's a little bit of time for looking back in time. But before that, I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart the Supreme Court Bar Association for organizing this event and for all the beautiful words which have been said by each one of the speakers who preceded me. Brother Sanjeev Khanna, I'm really touched to the core by what you've said. Thank you so much, Rachna. Thank you, Kapilji, for these beautiful words in the poem. Thank you so much, AG. And thank you, really, all of you, for giving me this great honor together with my family. I don't want to be very long, but it's obviously a time when I must acknowledge those who have played a very critical role in my life. And who more, or who better, to begin with than my own mother. I was a sick child. I was prone to falling sick. My mother must have spent night after night keeping awake to ensure that I get well. And I still remember a little saying or a shloka, whatever you can call it, that she would say, which I was thinking of over the last few days. I must have heard her innumerable times saying, Aushadhi Janvi Toyam Vaidyo Narayano Hari, which meant that Aushad, medicine, is like the Ganges, and Vaidyo Narayano Hari, the doctor, is in the position of Narayan. I never knew what the meaning of that phrase was. I never did. All that I knew was that it was accompanied by the bitter medicine which went into my mouth. She told me when I was born, I was growing up, that I've named you Dhananjay, but the dhan in your Dhananjay is not material wealth. I want you to acquire knowledge. Like most Maharashtrian women, she was very powerful. Ours was a woman-dominated house. My mother dominated everything at home, and I think women from Oriya are in the same pattern. So my lovely spouse Kalpana calls all the shots at home, but never messes around with the judgments. We had a household help when I was young. Her name was Bhimabai Bhanu Ghamat. She came from rural Maharashtra, coastal Maharashtra. She was engaged because my mother had contracted typhoid, and she was engaged to be with my mother to give a nursing care for her. And when I was born, I was a late born child, but not fondled. I was disciplined, but not overly disciplined. I was allowed to live my own childhood without really compelling me to live the dream of my parents. They never tried to live their dreams through me. But Bhimabai Bhanu Ghamat was completely illiterate. In fact, she learned how to write her name when she joined our family, our household. I was so sick, but she really nurtured me. And she taught me so much about life beyond the urban area that I was born into. From her, I realized the truth about our rural households, rural Maharashtra. Most importantly, she made sure that though my father had become a judge just about a year after I was born, that I associated with people, with young friends who belonged to the margins of our society. My best friend always wore two pairs of shorts. And the reason why he wore two pairs of shorts was not because he had too many, but because he wanted to hide the holes in his shorts. Years later, I read a judgment of the Supreme Court. Actually, it was penned by my father about this person who was sentenced to death. And everybody who gave evidence in that case said that he was such a despicable man. He didn't even have, he would wear shorts with many holes. But I remembered that story when I was reading that judgment. In so many which ways, it reflected the true character of India, at least when I was growing up. But I learned so much from her, and there's rarely a day of my life when I think both my sister and I don't remember her. I'll say just a few words about my father, who was a mentor, a good friend, a dear friend to me. He taught at the Government Law College, and so many of the great doyens of the bar, Fali Nariman, Soli Sorabji, Anil Diwan, Ashok Desai, all of them were his students. He was very disciplined, but he didn't discipline us as children. He thought that we should learn the ideals of discipline looking at the way he led a disciplined life. Two things which I'd like to share with you, otherwise, I can go on forever about a parent, as all of us can. He bought this small flat in Pune. And I asked him, why on earth are you buying a flat in Pune? When are you going to go and stay there? He told me one thing. So I know I'm never going to stay there. But he said, I'm not sure how long I will be with you. But do one thing, keep this flat until the last day of your tenure as a judge. And I said, why is that? So he says, if you feel that your moral integrity or your intellectual integrity is ever compromised, I want you to know that you have a roof over your head. Never allow Never allow yourself to be compromised, either as a lawyer or as a judge, because you have no place of your own. When I was young and I was growing up and I was in Delhi University, everyone you had to do a subsidiary subject. And all my friends were taking either philosophy, most of them were taking philosophy, which was a subject where you read for one evening and passed. You had to only pass. But my father insisted that I should take up Hindi. Now, I knew only Bombaya Hindi. But he insisted that I took Hindi, and it was a difficult call. But in the course of learning Hindi in college, I came across Mahadevi Verma, Jaishankar Tripathi, Nirala, Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, and so many. Munshi Premchand, Gaban, I must have read at least a dozen times. Just I read Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton later, which really inspired me. So he inspired me to do Hindi. Almost 30 years later, when I was to go to the Allahabad High Court, I realized how important it was, because very often the advocacy in English would end with, "Please, Your Lordship."